Some things in life are just not meant to be. The plant that withers and dies no matter how well you care for it. The first date that you just can't strike up a rapport with no matter how much booze is involved. The family that you try to join by sneaking into their house in the middle of the night only to get discovered and they just won't stop screaming. Or, in this case, Sony's bizarre and often laughable attempt to exploit the handful of Marvel characters they still own the rights to by establishing their own mini-cinematic universe. Because really, who can forget the cinematic delights of Morbius, Venom, Madam Web, or, in this case, Kraven the Hunter? Well, everyone, it seems, which is why Sony is officially abandoning the whole thing, so they can concentrate on strip mining the one property that people actually still care about. Get ready for a lot more Spider-Man projects over the next few years, boys and girls. Anyway, you're not here for that. You're here to listen to my review of Kraven the Hunter. God knows why, but whatever, let's just get into it. Does it live up to the totally non-existent hype? Was it worth the 2-year delay? Is it even worth 2 hours of your time? You know how the studio released the first 8 minutes of the movie a couple of weeks back in a desperate attempt to drum up some kind of interest. You know how some of the top comments were, "Man, I hope this doesn't turn out to be the best 8 minutes of the film." Well, I'm pleased to say that they absolutely are. Kraven the Hunter was something that I'd struggle to even call a movie because it's less of a structured narrative with a beginning, middle, and end, and more like a bunch of disjointed scenes and action sequences thrown together into a blender and spat out the other side. Actions and events have almost nothing in common with their consequences. Characters talk at each other like they're having completely different conversations. The antagonist is one of the weakest and most ludicrous villains I've seen in any movie ever. The acting is atrocious, the effects are laughable, and there's an almost palpable air of indifference to the entire movie. It feels like a film made out of obligation, purely to retain the character or to fill a release slot, instead of something that anyone gave a damn about. In short, it's about the same quality level as Madam Web, but whereas Madam Web at least gave us some funny memes and Sydney Sweeney, Kraven is just weirdly empty. It's a film with no heart, no soul, no energy, and no real reason for existing. I mean, it opens promisingly enough, I guess, with Kraven infiltrating a Russian prison to get to the warden and take him out because it turns out that the man is an arms dealer who's responsible for killing a lot of innocent people. Why exactly is an international arms dealer also working as a prison warden in some frozen gulag at the arse end of nowhere? Don't know. That aside, though, it's a neat enough sequence that's focused, well shot, brisk, and businesslike. The reason I call it out is because it's so completely different from the rest of the movie that it almost feels like it was lifted from a whole other project. And basically, it's all downhill from here. This brings us to flashback time. Young Kraven and his brother, Dimitri, are on safari in Africa with their dad, Russell Crowe, when Kraven gets killed protecting Dimitri from a lion. But that's okay, because a little girl shows up who's actually a voodoo priest or something, whose gran told her that she needed to be there to save him. So she gives him a magical medicine that brings him back to life and turns him...
Really?
You know what? Let's just keep going. Flash forward 16 years, and Kraven has become a kind of boogeyman who hunts down criminals and bad people. After he's finished that job in Siberia, he heads to London for Dimitri's birthday. But oh no, Dimitri gets kidnapped by Rhinoceros Man, who wants Russell Crowe to pay a ransom for him. But because Russell Crowe is not interested in helping, Kraven instead tracks down the voodoo priest, who's now working as a lawyer in London. Wow, that was lucky. Lucky that she happened to be based in the same exact city where the bulk of the action takes place. Also, how exactly did Kraven find her? Don't know. He just kind of shows up wherever the script needs him to be, and his only explanation is, "I'm a hunter." Anyway, that's your setup. Kraven wants his brother back, and Rhinoceros Man wants him dead, so he uses a superhuman assassin to hunt him down. But that's okay, because the voodoo priest shoots him in the head with a crossbow, and then Rhinoceros Man turns into an actual rhinoceros so that he can have a fist fight with Kraven, even though his skin is supposed to be so impenetrable that even gunshots don't do anything to him. Kraven stabs him in the stomach anyway, and then he gets run over by a bunch of buffalo and dies. Then Kraven figures out that Russell Crowe actually engineered the whole thing. This makes no sense because he almost died and lost both of his sons multiple times. But let's not dwell on that. Then he makes a bear kill him, and that's it. That's the film. Overwhelmingly, what was the point of any of that? Genuinely, I got to the end of the movie, and my first thought was, what did we even accomplish here? Kraven is still a hunter, just like he was before, and his father's criminal empire is still standing, exactly as it was. The only thing that's changed is who's in charge now. For a movie that's over 2 hours long, it's amazing how little actually happens in Kraven. The plot is simple to the point of being almost non-existent. His brother gets kidnapped, and he has to get him back. That's it. That's all it is. Kraven just teleports from place to place, following clues off-screen and getting help whenever the writers can't think of any other way to move things forward. Rhinoceros Man is given almost no development as an antagonist. I don't know who this guy is, where he came from, what he cares about, what his connection to Kraven is, or anything else about him. And honestly, that's fine, because pretty soon, I stopped caring. Calypso, the voodoo priest, is another non-character. She has the personality of a beige-colored cinder block, and the actress playing her couldn't have cared less if she tried. She's supposed to be some kind of vague love interest, but it never goes anywhere. She and Aaron Taylor-Johnson have what I can best describe as anti-chemistry. Watching them together is like watching two robots exchange information, except they both think they're having different conversations. Answers often have no connection to the questions that prompted them. One of them will suddenly blurt out something completely unrelated, reinforcing my suspicion that the film has been butchered with reshoots and rewrites. The casting is a mess too. I like Aaron Taylor-Johnson as an actor, and he's come a long way from his kick-ass days, but he was terribly miscast as Kraven. He looks lost and indifferent most of the time, as if he doesn't know how to play the character in any given scene, and eventually, it seems like he just stops trying. And honestly, who can blame him? Kraven feels like a character with no clear motivation, goals, or even personality. Changing him from a big-game hunter to a pseudo-conservationist vigilant was clearly done to fit modern sensibilities, but it neuters the essence of who he is, leaving him without a clear worldview or purpose. And you'll never convince me this guy is supposed to be a Spider-Man antagonist. The film clearly wants to say something about the complex and often antagonistic relationship between sons and fathers as boys become men and men grow old. The problem is, it doesn't know what it wants to say or how to say it. The best it can manage is having Russell Crowe shout occasionally, drink some vodka, yell at one or both of his sons, and then disappear. I mean, I love Russell Crowe as an actor, but holy hell, he needs to fire his agent. He's been in some terrible films lately. On top of that, all the usual Sony trademarks are here. Cheap CGI clearly done by the lowest bidder, clunky dialogue, desperate attempts to tie this into better franchises, and choppy pacing that screams troubled production. The result, terrible reviews, a disastrous opening weekend, and likely the death of the franchise this film was meant to launch. The world is unlikely to remember Kraven the Hunter. Honestly, I watched it a couple of days ago, and I'm already forgetting it. And you know what? I'm perfectly okay with that. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.